What's up, Jim?
Doing well. Good morning, Jared.
Good morning. Yeah,
Good morning.
rare morning recording here. So
Yeah, exactly. We're usually an afternoon record, but we're going in the morning today. Because shout out to my son Will. I'm heading to see him in Cleveland and his
nice,
lovely bride very soon. Uh, Thank you for scheduling around that. I appreciate it.
for sure.
Will is a loyal member of the Legion.
Heck yeah, nice.
Heck
Well,
yeah.
tell me if Cleveland still rocks, man.
Yeah, we'll find out. We'll find out, man. From what I hear, it still rocks. So
Nice.
good. Good. All right. So, what are you reading this week, Jared?
So this week, I actually reread Aristotle's Poetics for class. Of course, we read that. I'm still working my way through Blood Meridian, the
Nice.
audiobook for that, and then of course I reread what we were talking about today, like a week ago. So
Okay, cool.
yeah,
Yeah, I need to get on Blood Meridian because we need to do an episode of that, and it's been
nice.
a while since I read that book. So I have been reading. I'm continuing to work my way through Lacan's Seminar 7, The Ethics of Psychoanalysis, and I've also read some articles, sort of things, but also I've been reading Thomas Pynchon's The Crying of Lot 45.
Wow. Okay.
Which
Nice.
which is oh man, that book's a trip, man. So
Okay.
yeah, and I haven't looked at Pynchon I think probably going back to college. I think I read Mason and Dixon back then.
See, I haven't read him in a
Um,
long time.
yeah, and
Yeah.
so I would encourage you to get on that because I think that would bear a good episode, and
Okay.
it fits our own tortured relationship to paranoid conspiracy,
There you go.
which look all of Pynchon really does.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Oh,
I would encourage you to have a look at that. And that's like usually his books are huge. It's a manageable one. It's like 150 pages.
nice. Okay.
The Legion could follow along with us on that.
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what I've been doing
Well,
this week.
maybe someday we need to do a full episode just on the conspiracies we know or we believe and we know and
Yeah.
definitely go
Oh
down the rabbit
yeah.
hole. That could be
Yeah.
multiple episodes though. That's the difficulty.
Yeah. We should do an episode. We'll call it Indulging Jared and Jim's Paranoid Fantasies.
There you go. Exactly.
I mean, nothing could be more Zizkian than that. Right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right. The pervert's guide to conspiracy.
There you go.
Right. I say as I pick up my Area 51 mug. Nice. All right, but today we begin a series. A three-parter. And it's three parts because it's covering a trilogy. And we are gonna do this Theban trilogy. And so today we're gonna get into Oedipus Rex, about which I'm sure many of our listeners would think, what more could be said? Well, hold our beer, because we have to take on this thing, right?
Exactly.
Exactly. And then we're going to do Antigone, which is maybe my favorite of the trilogy, and also has been commented on by so many important thinkers. Like Lacan has a lecture on it. Hegel, famously in the Phenomenology of Spirit, it plays an important point there. Heidegger comments on Antigone, so I think we'll have much to say there. That's a little off the beaten track, as it were. And then we're going to do Oedipus at Colonus, the one that no one reads.
Exactly.
I mean, like, what are you going to like not watch Return of the Jedi? And I mean, if it's a trilogy, probably the third one's the real important money.
Where a lot of it gets wrapped up. Yep.
Yeah, and on my read, that's really where the big things happen, right? Buckle up. We're going to do we're going to do three episodes here on Sophocles' Theban trilogy, right?
Yep. Yeah, and I see Sophocles as kind of like the great 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 grandfather of a lot of people that we like. A lot of the philosophers we've been talking about.
Mm-hmm.
He was kind of one of the OGs that got into a lot of what we talk about. And it's funny because we're called the Great Dangerous Books, and this, of course, is added into a ton of your typical classical education curricula. But I personally think it's a very dangerous book. The way you read it.
Book.
Let's read it. So,
and I think it was intended to be transgressive and dangerous. We'll talk about that.
I agree.
And I think it still today, despite how almost cliche it is, right? It is
Yep.
still transgressive and dangerous in the best
Totally
and
agree.
most dangerous way, right? And also, like I think, like so for me, uh, I use either one of the Oresteia or one of the Theban trilogy to start almost all my general education classes in philosophy.
Nice.
Yeah. So like my ethics class, I start with one of them every time, right? And then in the other ones I'll vary, but um because I actually don't think you can really understand what Plato is up to if you don't understand the challenge of the tragic poets. Okay. And I think the same thing with Aristotle too. I mean, and Nietzsche, quite famously in The Birth of Tragedy, points out, I don't know if it's true or not, because Nietzsche was not above making stuff up. Okay. But he says when Plato was a youth, he wrote tragic poetry, right? And then chickened out, basically, is Nietzsche's take. Okay. And I think um much of what goes on in later Greek philosophy is answering a challenge, and we can debate how successfully so, that is in fact raised by the tragic poets. Right. Yeah. And I'll even say like those two sets of plays by Aeschylus and Sophocles like are to this day like haunting to me. Right.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've read these plays. I've never actually seen them in person. I would love to find a way to actually see the plays done, in person, but I've read these plays probably a dozen times, and every single time something jumps out to me in a different way. It's crazy.
I got to see my two of my children, Patrick and Martha, in a production of Antigone at their high school.
Nice. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. Um, and let's see, I've never seen Oedipus at Colonus performed. That would be cool. Hint. Right? I do believe I've seen Oedipus, but I don't remember where, right?
Okay.
So there was a very good theater company when I was at Kent State that would put on some pretty interesting stuff
Oh,
like that. Yeah.
nice.
Yeah. Yeah. Back in
Nice.
the day, as it were. Right.
Sure.
All right. So shall we get in?
Let's do it.
Right. Okay. So Sophocles. Who is Sophocles? And this is important. Okay. Um. So Sophocles was a a, a general, right? In the military in Athens, right? He was a general in the Athenian army. Okay. My understanding is you were not allowed to perform in the theater, the tragic theaters, unless you were a veteran.
Oh,
Right. It was like
yeah.
that. Like it's I read a book, the author's Simon Critchley's book, The Greeks Tragedy in Us is absolutely brilliant. Okay. And he makes the point in there that this was an all veteran affair. Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah. And
It's really
Critchley's
interesting because, like,
yeah.
in the Far East, actually, if you were in the theater, you were kind of thought a little bit less than, whereas now in Athens, that's the level they see the theater, like, how serious they take it,
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. Like, yeah. And remember there's a religious tie-in to these festivals
Totally.
and all that.
Yeah.
Critchley's take, if I remember, I should have been a responsible scholar for the first time in my life and looked at this before I spoke in public about it, right? But I believe Critchley's take is that these were a group of veterans coming out of the war with Persia and some other expeditions that Athens had done that felt like they had been done dirty by like the leadership in Athens.
The
So
man. Yeah.
by the man, right, as it were, familiar story. Okay, and they see so that they are, and I say this in the best sense as the devoted son of one, pissed off vets. Okay, and um, they see Athens gearing up to do this again. Like, I mean, I
Mhm.
think that's just
Mhm.
Critchley's take. They see like the Athens thinks it's all that now, and they're going to go out there and like pick a fight with someone, i.e., Sparta, and it's going to end bad for us. And they see it, right? They're like Vietnam vets watching the war on terror unfold, right?
Totally.
Right? Okay.
Exactly.
Speaking of my dad, okay, all right, and and then Critchley's take, like the whole theater scene is an expression, is a medium of expression for them to make, like, to say the quiet part aloud,
Yes.
right? Okay, so I think. and once again, I'm not a classicist. I could be corrected on this, of course. And I'll appeal to my authority in Critchley here, right? I think what you have here is a very transgressive take on Athenian society, on the politics of Athens and in the culture of Athens and where it's been and where it's going, et cetera, et cetera. I also think when we get into this, it's going to be pretty close to home for us too.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interestingly, the only thing inscribed on Sophocles' gravestone is actually the fact that he was a vet of the Persian War.
Yeah.
So he didn't write. He didn't put playwright. He didn't put anything else. He just
Yeah.
put that. So that was a point of
As if
pride.
to say, don't let them say, despite what I said in my plays about how much I loathe them, don't let them say I wasn't a patriot
Exactly.
and I didn't do my part. Right. Right. Yeah. I think that's an interesting thing. Right.
Absolutely.
Right. Remember this, guys. I was there. Right.
Totally.
Right.
Totally.
I was there. Right. I think that's pretty cool. Okay. Now another thing too that I always like to point out, and I have this is just entirely speculative on my part. Okay, so you have the city of Thebes, all right, which I think is a not so thinly veiled metaphor for Athens, right? Okay, and as we get into the actual dialogue, or that I let it slip, 'cause I'm gonna like signal Plato here, right? As we get into the actual drama, okay, it's interesting why does Plato take a dramatic form? Anyway, wonder. Okay, as we get into the actual drama, it's gonna be about, in a way, the founding of Thebes, right? Like Oedipus, like initially saves Thebes from the Sphinx, right? So in a way, it's like Thebes as we know it is a product of Oedipus,
Yes.
right? Okay, um, and where else in classic Greek thought, Jared, have we seen metaphors of cities and their foundings being used to make larger philosophical points going beyond merely the political or the urban?
All over the place.
Could it be the Republic?
The Republic.
Yeah,
I would even argue Agamemnon probably does the same
yeah.
thing. Yeah.
Because think of it, in the Republic, the whole talk of the city is just a metaphor to talk about human nature, right? At least that's the surface of the dialogue. Like, well, gee, we could never talk about the soul directly. It's too difficult. So let's talk about a city, right? So I think what I'm getting at is I think we can read this play at a number of levels, all of which are probably intended, right? You can read it as you can read it as a just a debasing bit of pornography, right? Okay, you could do that if you wanted to. That's there. All right. Okay. Something for the peanut gallery, as it were, right? Okay. Yeah, right. You could read it as political commentary, right? It's a thinly veiled metaphor of one city for another, namely Athens. Or I think you could read it also as a metaphor for the human condition, right? And I think because I think of it, it seems that the Greeks were into using stories about the founding of cities for the stories about the origins of the human psyche,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And I'm happy to look at this play on all three levels, right?
I agree. Yeah,
yeah.
I think it's also a
It
major
does entertain in ways that make me uncomfortable with myself.
for sure. For
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
I think it's a major critique of people trying to make sense of the world too.
Yes.
Right? Like you
Yes.
think the world makes sense? Let me show you
Good
what
luck.
the world really like.
Yeah. Yeah. And in the sort of, psychoanalytic, Zizkian, Lacanian take that we tend to go with on this show, which help yourself disagree, gentle listeners, right? This is one of the great revelations that the big other is stupid.
Exactly.
Right? The big other is a sicko.
Yeah.
It turns out. Yeah. Right. Turns out the big other's a sicko, right? Like the very perversion that the big other insists that be disallowed are in fact the very lifeblood of the big other, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it feeds on us.
It feeds on us and we feed on it. Yeah, definitely. Cool. So do you want to do a quick plot summary and we'll get into like some specifics on our takes?
Sure. Um So the play opens with Oedipus kind of talking to his own citizens and realizing that there's a plague going on. And he shows up and basically says, "Look, guys, I'll fix whatever the plague is. Let's find out what's going on." And
So
his
there's a
brother-in-law,
symptom.
a
There's a
symptom.
problem.
Yeah, there's a
There's a
problem.
symptom of an illness on the
Yes.
surface here. You see what I mean? Like, okay, yeah, go.
Yep. And then his brother-in-law shows up, Creon, and says, "Look, I've been talking to this wise man, Tiresias, which if you know Tiresias' background, I don't know how wise he was. Maybe he was just kind of a punch-drunk, crazy person.
Because
But
he shows up as a figure in tragedies by other authors, right?
yep, yep,
Okay, and he always has he's somewhere between a sage and a clown,
yes,
right?
yes. Well,
Yeah.
if you remember his background, like, do you remember the hitting the two snakes copulating with a
Yeah.
staff,
Yes.
and it turns
Yes.
him into a woman?
Yes.
And then he has a whole family, and then he sees two snakes copulating again. He hits him with a staff that turns him back into a man.
Yes. Yes.
And then Zeus
What
and Hera have this
happens?
big debate about, sexual pleasure and which one's better. And they're like, let's ask Tiresias. He's been on both
Yeah.
sides.
Yeah. He's done both. Yeah.
So it's always funny when he shows up as the wise man, it's kind of a
Yeah.
funny thing.
Yeah.
But anyway, Tiresias points out, hey, there's the reason there's this plague is because there's an evil here. Somebody who killed the original king is still at large and has not been punished. And basically, Oedipus, in his hubris, decides to keep asking and asking and asking, who is this person? Who is this
And
person?
he vows, I will find this person.
Yep,
I
I'll
will
find this person.
root
I'll
him
kill this
out.
person.
I
Yep,
will kill this bastard.
a plague on this guy.
Because I once saved the city before, and right, I founded this city is how I read that. I founded this city, and I will do it again. Yeah,
Yep.
right.
So
I can beat the symptoms.
yes, and this is where I think Sophocles is so brilliant at dramatic irony, because he's constantly showing you like you guys know, like you guys out in the crowd know exactly what's going on, and you're watching Oedipus just dig this hole for himself. But anyway, so Oedipus vows to find this guy and actually ends up coming after, and he basically decides like, hey, let's do whatever we can to find this person. And Tiresias warns him. It basically says, look, you're not going to like what you see. You're like, and he keeps asking and asking and asking until finally he says, look, it's you. You're the one that killed the
Right.
king. Right. And so then eventually Oedipus actually gets pissed off at Creon and thinks that he's actually like in cahoots with Tiresias, and puts a curse on Creon, pretty much. And then
By the
the
way,
story
in the
continues.
trilogy, I'm kind of a pro Creon guy. I actually think Creon gets a bad rap from a lot of readers. But
See, when we talk about Antigone, that will be really
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, hold on. I but just a hint. If you're bored by this, tune in for Antigone because I've got a hot take on Creon.
Absolutely. So then, of course, Oedipus continues on his journey. You see the chorus, which kind of represents the citizenry, warning him and talking about how dangerous it is to keep asking questions, until finally he ends up going to Jocasta, his
Just
wife.
stuff it, man. Stuff it. Don't
Yeah, quit asking questions. Why
treat the
are you?
symptoms and stuff the question.
Totally. Well, and interestingly too, I mean, the
One
chorus
might
does
call
kind
this
of say,
repression. One might call it repression. I don't know, but
yeah, and interestingly, the chorus does kind of say, like, look, you've been good, like you saved us from the Sphinx, you've had order here. The plague is this new thing, so let's figure it out. So anyway, then through inquiry, Oedipus keeps asking about who killed the king. He goes to Jocasta, his wife, and starts asking her. Then they find out there's this
his wife,
farmer. Exactly, who is actually his mom. But basically, there's this farmer who did see who was killed or who killed the king, and Oedipus explains, "Look, I was leaving. What is the name of the city that he originally lived in?
Corinth.
Corinth.
Yep.
And he was leaving Corinth because he got this prophecy that he was going to kill his dad and marry his mom. So he decided to run away from home because he didn't know. But come to find out, what happened was his own father and his own mother got the same prophecy. And so they actually pinned him, which means like put literal iron bar between the back of your heels and put him out to pasture and ask someone to go take care of it. And that guy ended up giving it to a farmer who works in Corinth. The farmer gave it to the king and queen. So he was raised by this other king and queen in Corinth with this prophecy. So he thought he was running away from the very fate that he thought, he could get away from.
But I
And in
think
the
this is
process,
important. This is important though. Oedipus, throughout his life, right, knew the prophecy. He knew it. Okay.
yep. So as the story unfolds, you find out that on his way from Corinth to Thebes, he ends up coming across this band of people, one of which was the king, who hit him with a scepter because he was in the way. And the guy, Oedipus, decides to slaughter the entire crew. So like 5 or 6,
Bit of a road rage.
guards, a little bit of a road rage, kills the king, doesn't know it's the king, but then comes into Thebes, answers the riddle of the Sphinx, which I actually find very interesting. We'll get into that here in a second. And story unfolds. He talks to Jocasta. Jocasta ends up kind of like realizing, oh, you're you're the son that I put out to pasture, you know, 2 decades ago or however long ago it was. And so she tells him, you need to stop asking questions. We need to just leave this alone. He can't let go of it until finally he finds out. So then he finds Jocasta hung herself because she found out. He takes 2 of the pins on her, or brooches, or whatever you would call those, of her clothes, and stabs his own eyes out, blind himself. And then the story just kind of unfolds into Antigone later. But
He's now blind like Tiresias.
yep, exactly. But there's a lot to unfold in that.
Yeah, 100%.
I think that part of so the riddle is, what walks on 4 legs in the morning, 2 legs at noon, and 3 legs in the evening? And the answer is a man. And I think that covers this entire play. It's like you're watching
Yeah.
man at play.
Yeah.
This is mankind, right?
Yeah.
And
Well,
so,
we've been told this is the human life cycle is what's at stake here.
yep, exactly,
Right.
exactly.
Yes.
So with all of that in the background, I don't know if you want to start touching on specific parts of it,
Sure.
but I think a
Yes.
big one for me
Yeah.
is the idea of fate and prophecy. I mean, most of the time in Greek tragedies, prophecy just absolutely sucks. Once you hear a prophecy, you're doomed. I mean, like that's not good for you. But I see fate as this big other, right? This big other has revealed itself to you. It's told you something that you need to either accomplish or that you're definitely going to do. And by trying to run from it, you fall right into its trap.
Yeah.
You
Big
know,
other will still insist.
it will still
You can't
insist,
keep the big other. Yeah.
but it doesn't
Yeah.
actually exist,
Doesn't
right?
actually exist. Yeah. And you have to do it. Like this is something, like Critchley does this too. And this was always my take on it. So it was like a confirmation, right? Is okay. I think fate in this tragedy, at least, and I think in general in the tragedies, right? It's not like causal determinism. It's not saying this will happen against your will. It's
Mhm.
actually a reflection of what you really are. Like we conspire in our fate, right? And I think in this play, especially because Oedipus knew the prophecy. This is what I always tell my students. So he knows it has been predicted that he will kill his father and m- capital M marry his mother, and not in a Josephite manner, right? Okay, okay, and so what happens is one day he just happens to cap a dude about his old man's age in a road rage incident, and then goes over to the next city, and gee, there's a beautiful middle-aged queen just perfectly available to me, and I'll just snatch that up, right? And he's not thinking, I don't know, man, maybe that's a little too good to be true. It seems like you have to say there's a level of Oedipus that he knows very damn well what he's doing, and he's repressing it.
Yep,
You know what I mean? And so,
exactly.
like, what does it mean to be fated? We are fated by our repression of what's true about our desire.
Yes,
Not because we should act on those desires, but our repression of it leaves us victimized by it, right? Because we will not face what we really desire. We won't face it as our desire. That's what leads us to be victimized by it, right?
absolutely.
And otherwise, what Oedipus does at the end is unjust, right? But he justly punishes himself. Why? Because he conspired in his patricide and incest, right? That's how I see, or parasite and incest, right? That's how I see it, right?
Yes, and I see the blinding as I finally see what I've been repressing.
Yes.
So, and it's interesting too, because actually in the first like 10 lines, I think there's a moment where he has this moment of hubris and he says, I am Oedipus, right? I'm the guy who saved you guys from the Sphinx. I'm the guy who's going to save you from this symptom.
I'm the
And
subject
then,
who knows, man.
yep, I'm the subject who knows. And then all of a sudden he blinds himself. And once again, he says, I am Oedipus.
Yes.
So he finally sees the kind of like the false self that he was, and now he's the true self who sees his repressions and sees how like truly dark his desires are,
Yeah.
actually.
And whenever I teach this play too, I play up a lot that so Tiresias is the spokesperson, right, for the Oracle of Delphi, right? Or at least he was sent to the Oracle of Delphi to find out what the real deal is here, right? And so the Oracle of Delphi has got a pretty important history in Greek thought, right? And what was the motto at the Oracle of Delphi, right? Wasn't it know thyself,
Know thyself.
right?
Yep.
And isn't that where Socrates claimed to have been told that the unexamined life is not worth living, right?
That's right.
And so like in this representative of Apollo, right? The transparent reason, okay, shows up with a message from the center of self-knowledge and says, hey dude, you're a sicko, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
and
And you're
right,
blind to it.
and you're blind to it. And so like what is the play? I see it that it is a call to self-analysis.
Absolutely.
It's a call to like what would legitimate know thyself be? It would be an admission of what our desire really is, not because we're going to act on it necessarily, but to admit it. And only then are we not going to be victimized, because it's sort of like in the play, desire is going to win.
Hmm.
Fate's going to win one way or another. It can do it through these symptoms, these neurotic symptoms from our repression, or it can do it through our like constant performative acts to like avoid it, namely what all of Oedipus, right? All that he's done. But it's gonna win unless we admit what it is, right?
Exactly.
And it's only in the admission of what it is that there could have been a kind of relief to it, right?
Yes.
But it's too late for Oedipus. He's destroyed the city.
Exactly. And
Right?
that's where I think there's two or
He's
three
destroyed the
moments.
self on my reading, right? The
Yes.
subject
Yes.
is done. Yeah.
There's two or three moments where he keeps digging, right? He keeps asking, keeps asking, keeps asking, and people warn him constantly, don't, you got to stop, you got to stop. But I think that that's actually Sophocles saying like, no, you have to
You
keep
have
going
to.
no matter what other voices are sitting there saying stop
Right.
asking,
Because
because it's better to get down to the bottom of it.
his digging's gonna ruin the big other. It's gonna ruin the
Exactly.
symbolic pact that the lie, right? That Thebes has thrived on, right? Like Thebes, to quote an American film classic, sits on a throne of lies, right? Right? Like Elf. Okay, like it sits on a throne of lies. It is built on a symbolic pact of untruths. It's used the jacking thing. It's the master signifier covers nothing, right? It covers a gap, right? And but the thing is that's it's becoming apparent. There are symptoms now, and some forces within this subject will want to cling to the old pact, right? But that's why we're sick now. Okay.
Exactly.
And what does Oedipus do? Man, he tears that band-aid, baby. Right,
Yeah,
right. Here it is.
totally.
Here it is, right? And now we're gonna see in the coming plays, it's gonna destroy Thebes as a city, right? Okay, it's gonna destroy Thebes as a city. However, Thebes was already going to die under its own steam from the pestilence.
Exactly.
Right,
Exactly.
right.
I also think that this represents in a big way, as we kind of said at the beginning of the show, that you think what's going on is like makes sense,
Yeah,
like all of it, including your own psyche. You think you know what human nature is. You think you know what your relationship to the divine is. Let me show you what that really looks like,
like,
right?
why are you so quick to trust the surface story when there's a
Exactly.
pestilence about,
Yep.
right?
Yeah, and I think the ignorance of clues along the way. So, for example, like the pinning of the heels, he would
The
have had major
the
scars.
active ignorance of it.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
Willful ignorance of it. because he would have had scars on his
Yeah,
heels, right?
totally.
And
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
sure his mom wife would have noticed those
Yep.
scars. And
Okay,
they're
so
both willfully ignorant of like, huh, never really asked about those scars, those major scars on your heels.
when I teach this play, this is where you know, I well, I'm not a good man, and I enjoy scandalizing my students, and so and I'll ask the students like, do you really think it would be possible for your mother to accidentally sleep with one of your brothers?
Right.
Do you really think that, like, you know, your good wife wouldn't say, "Damn, that kid looks like Jared."
I know. I know.
And you know what I mean? Even leaving aside the scars he would have,
Yep.
right? You know what I mean?
Well, there's
Like,
even a
just
moment
like,
where he asked.
I don't believe it, especially because she knows the prophecy. Like, there's some risk. There's a non-zero chance that anybody I sleep with is gonna be one of my sons, right?
Exactly.
Right? Like, you now know it's a non-zero chance that that someone I may sleep with may turn out to be one of my sons. And darndest thing, that one looks like his old man, right?
Exactly.
I don't know. Don't tell me she's not repressing something here, right?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. There's even a moment where he starts to ask, "What did the king look like?" And she explains it and says, "He kind of looks like you."
Yeah, right.
Right.
That's what, right. I mean,
Well,
but yeah, and the thing is like Sophocles is not dumb, and he wasn't writing this for a dumb audience. Like, this is not going to be lost on them. You know what I mean? Like, and the audience isn't dumb. They know the political play that's being done here. That there's an indictment. It's to say, like, I think what's being said here is like Athens is is founded on the repression of something terrible,
hmm.
right? Okay, sort of like the movie Gangs of New York, like that's like the Oedipus story of New York City. Like, New York City is founded like on a repressed memory of wanton violence.
Yes.
Right. Okay. And
Exactly.
like Plato's Republic, like all cities are founded on the repression of just greed and lust and violence. Right. I think that's what Sophocles is saying here is like all cities are founded on, and Athens is not exempt. We are not exempt. We are founded on the repression of violence and incest and all these things. Right. Because the human subject is founded on their and where I'm not saying, nor is anybody who's read this, including Freud, saying there shouldn't be such repression, right? But the point is the refusal to admit that that repressive mechanism is necessary because that is part of the human condition, right? Leads to these bubbling up of symptoms that will destroy cities and selves.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Even the yellow, little red, white, and blue might be found on something a little
Yeah.
repressive.
Well, essentially, that's that's what Sophocles is doing for Athens, right?
Totally.
Totally.
I see this also as a big anti the man play, to be honest, because
It's
the
an
very
exposure
king.
of the big other as stupid. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. And the hubris to think that that you can go fix these problems, whatever that symptom might be, no matter what it is. I put a plague on this thing. I'll kill this thing.
Yeah.
Guess what? It was you the whole time,
Yeah.
right?
In
Like
fact, your repressive act is the source of the feeling, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know? Um, and so, like, look, I mean, like, you can see why Freud said, I'm going to use this play to explain what I'm up to. Right. Right. It fits rather well. Right. And whatever you think about what Freud thinks is being repressed, right? I do think we get a very powerful suggestion that something like that goes on both in our political situations and
Hmm.
in the very individual human condition.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's one of my favorite. I've got a ton of favorite lines
Yeah,
in this play, but one of
preach
my
it, man,
favorite,
preach it.
and we're
You just
using
you
the
just taught this book, so it's
yeah,
fresh.
we're using the Fagel's translation just
So,
to
like, you have the 3 Theban.
it's the same
Yeah,
copy. Yep.
people, this is the winner's edition of it, man. That's the
Exactly.
who are we going with? Penguin. Like, I think at some point, Penguin is gonna need to be, like, a sponsor of this podcast because
There you go.
we've been pushing
Oh.
Penguin pretty hard. What's your line number?
So line 963,
Okay, going deep. There you go.
it might even be a little bit earlier. I'm going to start there, but it's the chorus after the back and forth between Jocasta before they
Sure.
enter the palace. So Jocasta at this
I
point
have
has
that
not
page
admitted.
marked, by the way.
There
Yeah.
you go.
Yeah.
But it says, pride breeds the tyrant, violent pride, gorging, crammed to bursting, with all that is overripe and rich with ruin, clawing up to the heights, headlong pride crashes down the abyss, sheer doom. No footing helps, all foothold lost and gone. But the healthy strife that makes the city strong, I pray that God will never end that wrestling. God, my champion, I will never let you go. I see the tyrant here. A lot of people see the tyrant as either Oedipus or somebody else like that, but I see that as the self.
Yeah.
Right? Like
100%.
you're the pride is your own tyrant. Like it's your inability to be self-critical,
Yeah.
right? And that creates a tyrant.
It's the ego
Yep,
component of the self, right? It's the
exactly.
conscious self, right? And the conscious self is it's in its fantasy, it's believing itself to be the great king, to be the true master of the house, right?
Yes. Yes,
And it's fantasized its way into ignoring certain realities, like that isn't my mom. Right?
exactly.
That wasn't my old man that I killed back then. Right.
Exactly.
You
Exactly.
know what I mean? Um, y- and so I think what pride here is, it's not just hubris. It is that, but it's this sense that I am somehow exempt from the most base components of human nature as constitutive of myself. It's a it's a pride in the sense of the repression of the Jungian shadow.
Exactly.
To say
Exactly.
somehow that these base things, these things that I hate, are not in fact constitutive of my own identity.
Yep.
Right. Right.
That's why I love that
And
it says there's
people
no
always make the
foothold.
mistake. That's not to say we then indulge them. That's not the point.
Right. Yeah, pride is this, and of course, as like you said, it's not just hubris. It's a masking of the things that we think we have a contingency on. If that
Yes,
makes sense, right?
exactly.
And so that's why I love that they used foothold here, because I read
Yeah.
that as contingency. And so it's a masking of the things we think we have a contingency on, non-dark stuff, right?
Yes.
Like those temptations, those desires, those whatever you want to call them, those dreams, whatever you want to call them. And it's sitting here saying like that pride, that very masking is losing all of your foothold. You don't have a foothold. Your contingency is gone at that point.
Yeah. Exactly. Right. Yeah. You're yeah, exactly. And it's this sense that like somehow I can say that those desires are someone else's, right?
Yep.
That
That
I can,
other people have this thing, but
yeah,
not me. You know.
because and I'm gonna root them out. Like, you know
Yep.
what I mean? Like it's like another Jungian thing. Like every accusation is actually a confession, right? Like I'm gonna go look for the source of the pestilence precisely because it's me,
Yes.
right? Right. And look, like Oedipus was perfectly willing to kill someone else for being the source of this, right?
Yep.
And then Tiresias comes along and says, "Know thyself, bro."
Exactly. This
Right?
is also where I think like
Trouble is you.
Aristotle's idea of catharsis is
Yeah.
really interesting,
Yeah.
because so Aristotle basically says in his Poetics that a good tragedy brings out fear and pity, and a purgation of those emotions is called catharsis, right? And I think that it's really interesting, because a lot of times when you talk to people about, well, do you actually fear? Because fear in this sense is like, I fear that might be me,
Yeah.
up there. And I mean, it's funny because Sophocles goes to these like kind of more extreme things of like, well, you're going to marry your mom and you're going to kill your dad, right? But I'm like, no, no, no. The point is that all of us have this dark underlaying
Yeah.
within us,
Yeah.
and that we are
You
kidding
can
our
debate what that is, right? But that's
right,
not
right, exactly. And we're kidding ourselves though if we have this hubris or this pride, but this masking of ourselves to think you've got a foothold that nobody else has, because we all have
yeah.
this dark stuff, right?
Well said. Yeah. Yeah.
So, like, that's where I think Aristotle gets damn right. Like, that's all of us are there, because a lot of times when I teach this, it's like, well, do you pity or do you fear that this might be you? Because I mean, a lot of times we're like, no, of course I would have become a hermit or whatever. It's like, no, 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 that's not an option. Like, you're
Yeah.
going to do this shit. Like, this is
Yeah.
going to happen. So
That's the point of the play. It's like, okay, you can go become a hermit or what have you, but guess what? You're not going to win, right?
exactly,
Until you admit that there's part of you that wants to do it.
exactly,
Do you see what I mean? Like that's it, like it's like yeah, like Oedipus is responsible because he could have taken steps to avoid it. And he thought he was, but those steps were ineffective because he would not admit that ultimately the prophecy is not predicting an external force is going to make this happen. The prophecy is saying this is what you are, Oedipus, right? So until you admit that, you can go be a hermit, but guess what? This sick fantasy is going to creep in and something bad's going to happen. Like the hermiting yourself is no way to overcome like the constitutive bugs of human nature,
Exactly. Exactly.
right? Do you see
And
what I mean? Yeah,
that's why I love the fact that it's a plague within the city, right? It's a symptom within man. Like it's not something that can be murdered. It's not something that can be killed. It's a symptom that exists already. So you have
yeah,
to deal with it. Yeah.
yeah. And if it gets to the point where you have to destroy the founder, well, as we're going to see in the coming plays, it's going to take the city with him, right? Right. Right. It's going
Exactly.
to take like now we're beginning a spiral of intergenerational tragedy now. Right.
Yes.
Right. Like
Yes.
Thebes
When
will
and
not make it.
exactly. Exactly. Um, when he comes from a spiral of I don't know, I'm thinking of Agamemnon, but
Yeah. Agamemnon. Yeah.
there's a lot of
That's a rough one.
familial
Yeah.
spiraling going on there. But
I think
um
it's kind of in all tragedies. It's,
totally,
yeah.
totally. It's a curse, right? It's
Mhm.
something within our blood that just
And it's not because like the point is like literal superhero gods literally cursed people, whatever. I'm not convinced educated Greeks took all that stuff terribly seriously, right? It's because what they're saying is there is something intrinsically off in human nature, right? I
baked
mean,
in.
like, it's baked in, right? And think of it, like what you're having here is the first time I think someone's noting that we're trying to run civilizational software on a system of hardware that was designed for the Paleolithic, right?
Yep.
I did like, that's like, and someone's kind of getting like, wait, it seems like we're not really fit
Exactly.
for what we have to do now, right? But we
Exactly.
do have to do those things. So maybe it would help to be honest about it,
Yep.
right?
Yeah. Another line that I love is actually the very last three lines of the whole play, where he says, "Now what a black sea of terror has overwhelmed him. Now, as we keep our watch and wait the final day, count no man happy till he dies, free of
Yes.
pain at last."
Yeah.
I just I don't see that as nihilism. I see it as what we're talking about. That there's something baked in to humankind that like there's just dark stuff going on, and the idea that you're going to just happily be willfully ignorant is foolish.
Yes.
Um, so it's like that's why being self-critical is so freaking important, right?
It's so what yeah, I'm agree with her. I'm just trying to find the passage. Like I agree 100% because like what like it's saying it. I see this as sort of like Freud's thing about how the point of analysis is to just restore us to ordinary unhappiness, right?
Hmm.
Okay, right. And I think all that means is like if you were to get rid of all anxiety, right? If you were to get rid of if you were like beware of any condition of complete satisfaction, that
Hmm.
probably means you've fallen into some moronic state with respect to the big other, right? And to be happy in the sense of being utterly anxiety free would be to be dead.
Yes, exactly.
Right? Like that would be a fulfilled death drive, right?
Yes,
You know what I mean? There's no more anxiety, right? And so the human condition is such that our freedom is constituted, is a theme we come back to getting. Like, our freedom is constituted by the experience of the anxiety of things not fitting, right?
yes,
Because
yes,
because Oedipus was not free in as much as he was living the life of like successfully repressed anxiety about his incestuous and murderous desires, right? Okay. And he only becomes free. He only becomes to live the real life once that's all revealed and he accepts the anxiety of it.
and he
Right.
blinds himself.
Yeah.
Yep.
And he blinds himself as such. Right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, because the quote
Yeah.
unquote like happy Oedipus is the one at the beginning of the book or beginning of the play.
Yeah.
right? The guy who's done all of this stuff, the guy
Yeah.
who's killed his dad, the guy who's already slept with his mom, the guy who, you know, and who thinks I'm going to get rid of this symptom. And that's where I think that the blinding is just so important, because what they're saying is like, look, happiness is not something you're ever going to fully reach in this life. Like, you're blind if you think that, right? So
Yeah,
like
exactly.
the real you is blind. And so but to be okay with that, like, to be okay with realizing, like, yeah, anxiety is just part of life, like fear is just part of life.
Livable unhappiness, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Right. Um, and I would even say be very wary of proposals of complete happiness
Totally, totally.
because it's probably ultimately a repressive structure of some manner or other, right?
Yep.
Because any proposal of complete happiness is going to probably involve this appeal to a subject supposed to know.
Yes.
You're
And
going
this is
to
what I
end
think
up
I love.
offloading something. Yeah.
Exactly. And this is where I love Sophocles, and what you pointed out earlier is that, yeah, it's about the founding of a city. It's also about the self, right? And so therefore, like, even in politics, right? Like, anybody who shows up and says, "Hey, I want to make things great again," or "Hey, hope's alive again," right?
Yeah.
Like,
I'm
either
or
side
the
of it.
whole. Yeah.
Like, wait a minute, what are you repressing?
What are you repressing? Yeah, because there's like, if you're going to say you're making great again, you're repressing a lot of terrible things from the
Exactly.
again, right? From back then. And if you're going to say, we're the hope we've been waiting for, you're ignoring some terrible stuff about us, right?
Exactly.
Like, why would you trust us, right? Yeah, like any whether it's Deleuze, I think Deleuze and Guattari, I think talk about this about I've been reading so much I'm confusing myself, but like there's a nostalgia play no matter what in this, right? It's all like an attempt at a memory of something that never really was, right?
Exactly.
Whether like synchronically or diachronically, right? Like by saying, "Hey, man, we can make the future be this time of capital H happiness," right? That is to repress the real memory of what we are, right?
Exactly.
If we're gonna return to the golden age, we're gonna make it great again. That is to repress what we really are because we were that back then. It's always a repressive move, right?
Or if you're going to, quote unquote, like, progress past some kind
Yeah,
of violent, incestuous
yeah,
desire, like,
yeah,
can't do that either, right? Like,
yeah,
it just doesn't work.
yeah. So I think anyone who's proposing to you like a new official story, right? Okay. And part of that story isn't, yeah, but you know what? We're not going to be fully comfortable in this because it's ultimately better than we are, right?
Hmm, hmm.
You know what I mean? Then guess what? It if unless they're willing to say that, it's a lie. Like like
Exactly.
like a kind of anxious alienation has to be built in, otherwise it's a lie.
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah, and the danger of offloading those repressions is even worse, right? That you're saying, like, I'm gonna follow along with this thing. It's similar to, like,
That's how
when
you end up
people.
sleeping with your mom.
Right.
That's
Exactly.
that's the point, right? Like, yeah, if you unless you admit there's a chance that I might actually want to do that, right? You're going to end up doing that. That's the point of the play, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, and the ignorance, or the willful ignorance or ignoring of the signs along the way, that's a major kind of warning in this book of, like, look, man, the repressions pop up every now and then, and you sit there and pretend like they didn't exist. You repress them even further,
There's some
and
symptoms. There's some symptoms going on, man. You've
exactly.
got a bit of a head cold here. There's a little pestilence in there.
Exactly. Yeah. So,
If you're so
yeah,
healthy,
I
why do you keep getting sick, right?
totally. No, I see a lot of the Greek tragedians, I guess is how you say it, um, as some of the original, like, criticists, like, some of the original self-critical and critique it all the way down. Because, I mean, these plays were done in a religious setting with a priest of Apollo right there. Usually the governor or whatever we would have it of Athens would be right there. And you're sitting there saying, this is in all of you. Like, from top to bottom, you guys are all like this. And you're all
Big
pretending.
Brother does not exist, guys.
Exactly. You're all pretending.
See that
And
priest in the
so,
front row? He doesn't know what he's talking about.
yep.
See that? Yeah. The governor, guess what? he doesn't know what he's talking about, right?
Exactly.
Like he's repressing the real deal here.
Yep, yep, and it doesn't take a prophecy to tell you that, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, so look, I mean, this fits. This is why. Remember, we were talking about Zizek when we decided to do this, right? This is like what like who is Zizek's critical intellectual? Sophocles, man, right? Because what's he doing? He's given us this dramatic uh representation of what it is to tear the band-aid off, and it's perennial,
Exactly,
right? Right.
exactly.
And once again, it doesn't have to be Thebes, doesn't have to be Athens, doesn't have to be Jared, doesn't have to be Jen, doesn't anyone, whatever the sicko desire is, or whatever the repressed element is, right? I think Sophocles is saying is it's there, and you ignore it at your peril. Like you make yourself a victim of fate by ignoring.
Exactly, exactly. Well, cool, man. Yeah, I'm sure we can
So
keep
the
going.
big takeaway: be wary of
Yeah.
right.
Yep. Well, to
Yeah,
me, that would mean, like,
the darkest
happiness.
thought we've had on this show.
Very
I
possible, very
yeah,
possible. Well, to me, to claim to be happy is to be willfully ignorant, right? Because this stuff is baked in, man. Whatever those dark desires are, whatever the fallenness that you have, it's part of human nature. And so to pretend as if you don't participate in that is ridiculous. Like that, it's just utterly ridiculous. And it doesn't mean that you can't live a good life. It doesn't mean that you can't find, joy in your relationships and other things. But it is to say, we're all lamenting the human condition. And if you're not, that means you're willfully ignorant. You're Oedipus, right?
right. And maybe maybe that's like a unfalsifiable challenge or something like that, or you know what I mean, or like maybe who am I to say that, right? And all I can say is, well, how's reading that play make you feel, man?
Exactly. Yeah,
You get hung up on that play at all, right?
exactly.
You're accidentally say Oedipus, right?
Cool, man.
And yeah, so very good. All right,
This
I
was
think
fun.
we've gotten into it.
Yeah. Hopefully, we haven't depressed the Legion all that much, but this is
This
par for
should
the
not.
course.
When I say dark, I don't mean depressing, right? I mean like the kind of darkness that comes when you go below and you go under.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? No, I think 100%. This is about honesty that will lead to a kind of liberation, right?
Absolutely.
But it's a liberation that requires you to accept some anxiety.
Yep. Be okay with the darkness.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Cool, man. Well, those watching and listening, be sure to hit that like button.
Hit that
Don't be like
like, yeah,
Oedipus, and hit that like button. So
yeah. I mean, and look, maybe this is terrible, but maybe like becoming a member of Patreon, it causes you some anxiousness, but this could be liberation, right? So, that was terrible. That was totally debasing what we're doing here. Words, right? Right. But I've got my own issues. Right?
awesome. All right.
All right.
Well,
Well,
we
hey, that was
appreciate
a
all
good
you
one,
guys.
man.
Yep. Thank you.
Read
All right.
Antigone before the next show.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you, Jared.